What are you doing?
Well, I think right now one of the most important thing for me to do is recruit like crazy and take care of the kids in this program, obviously. So I take the evenings, and I've always considered myself a pretty aggressive and hard recruiter, but I think I've stepped it to a little bit more of another level this year, especially with our needs and where we're going to be. I feel like it's important the kids understand exactly where they fit and filling up some of the holes that we have. So it's relationships. Try to get to know the kid as much as I can, and get to know people that are important to him, especially when they get to that list. I've probably got, 40 files around my desk that I go through and just communicate with the kids and touch base with them, and that they're doing all right. So it's a big job, but I love that part of recruiting.
Yeah, it is a big job. And when you say, taking it to another level, does that just mean volume, reaching out more? I mean, it seems to me that a lot of recruiting is just, feet to the pavement, just really getting after. Is that what that means, or does that mean something else?
Well, I think it should be that way. That's going to be the difference for us. I think a lot of times now in recruiting, it's a copycat business, and a kid will get this offer, and then he'll get 10 more offers because the assistant coach in that area sees that the kid got an offer, and he takes it in and watches a highlight tape. And to me, that's the recipe for disaster. And I think you need to have a lot of eyes on a kid first of all to get him evaluated. You need to watch game tape, and so to me, that's ground level recruiting for us. That's the way we like to go about it, and the way I believe it needs to be done. But it's still, even with all the advantages you get, and kids can't hide and all that stuff now, and there's still the ability of the human factor. Relationships matter, and that's how we're going to recruit. We're going to recruit on a relationship basis, and you would be amazed at the amount of kids throughout this country that go on a trip and they haven't, mom and dad haven't talked to a coach at the school, or they haven't communicated with this person or that person. So I just try to, get myself out in front of the head coach as much as I can, and I'm not perfect there. I can't touch everybody. It's impossible, but I sure try to. And I think we, at the end, are going to win on some recruiting battles because it shows that we do really have a vested interest in people, and we can show what our program's about, and we don't have to walk in and sell. We're just going to show you who we are and what we're about. Hopefully that's the place you want to be.
I saw you guys up close and personal, obviously, when you were at Utah State and in Utah, played against some of your teams. Why were you guys so successful in getting the big boys? When you talk O-line and D-line, it seemed like no matter where you've been, you have been able to get those kids.
Well, we really believed and prided ourselves in both of those places on being a developmental program. And so many of those guys, you saw that where you played. Obviously, the Cougs do the same thing. A lot of times those kids are older, and a lot of people, they're 24 years old and they're this and that off of missions. But the bottom line is they were kids that a lot of times were multi-sport athletes. They're tall kids. They're long-levered kids. They come out. They've done a lot of things. They grow and mature in your program. And we build them. I remember Zane Beatles, who played in the NFL forever, and he was about your time, I believe. Wouldn't he have been about that same era that you guys were playing? And Zane Beatles was 205 pounds out of high school, and it took him 3 years to get it on, and he was get the weight on where he needed it to be, and was a tremendous player for us. And I don't know, he might still be playing the NFL for all I know, but there's so many examples of those kids. And then as we got better and kids got into the NFL and they were all conference players and played at a high level, it became cleaner and easier for us to go out and get more involved with the big boys. And the Polynesian culture is a big part of that. It always was at Utah for us. It was pretty much non-existent when we got to Utah State, but we built that, and there's a baseline here for Polynesian players at Oregon State for a long. That's important because it does give you size and strength, and it builds a good tradition for those kids to want to come to.
I saw Bobby Wagner showed up at the hotel, and you recruited him to Utah State, which I actually didn't know that. And of course, for those that don't know, I'm talking about the Seahawks. Bobby Wagner, was he a big time recruit out of high school?
Actually, Bobby was there when we got there.
Oh,
he was there for 1 year, and no, he was not a highly recruited young man at all. But he was there and decided to go to Utah State. Didn't have a lot of options, and he was a young player when we got there. But thank goodness he was there. So, but he was Colony High School, I believe, is where he came from, if I remember right. And he was a young man that worked his way in. He was overachiever. He worked like crazy. But it was great to see Bobby. So he did not jump into the hotel when he got there either and block a kick. So he didn't tell us that was coming his way. But that was great play by Bobby the other night.
It was.
So I was up, went up and saw the game against UW in person. First time I've seen you guys in person this year. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I know the score may not have been what you were hoping for. but I actually came away really impressed with the physical nature in which you guys played and the offensive line at the start of the year versus what you see now. Has there been a group that has developed more than that crew now that, Harlow's back and you settled into a rotation, that you guys are now running the ball really effectively, even on what is a very elite front against Washington?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think there's been a group or a position group that has developed as well as our offensive line has. And, it's a credit to the kids. It's a credit to Coach Woods and Josh Oglesby, who helps Coach Woods a lot. And I think that, we were down to one tight end. And so Thule's one tight end for 2 weeks. And then Ricky came back a little bit last week. And those kids are doing a lot in our run game, too. So that's been a positive. But what we've done is, we've put players in positions where they're the best they can be. Dustin's playing well at guard. I had a pro scout talk to me the other day and tell me, Dustin is doing some things there at the right guard position. He seems more at home, and obviously Blake had to move from one tackle to the other when Sean came back, but then we've got competition at the left guard, and our young freshman beats out a guy that's been in here for a while, and now that guy wants to come back and fight for his spot. So, and Gavin playing at center. They've melted in pretty good to be a good core group, and again, you understand how important that is and what that means when they can get some starts underneath their belts and play as a 5 and a 6 and a 7 guys when you add the tight ends in there. So that group has come a long ways. I'm proud of them, and that's who we are. We have to run the ball effectively to have a chance to win football games. That's just going to be who we are, because we're not going to drop back and 50, 60 times to win a football game. It's not going to happen right now.
What's that?
Right now.
Right now, you're right.
Maybe sometime in the future, and that's a tough team, by the way, to drop back and throw it 50 times. They blitz less than anyone in the country, and they lead the country in sacks.
Yeah, those guys they're special up front. There's a number of guys in there, and I remember them coming out of high school, and they've done a great job of recruiting there for the last number of years, and they're good football players. They get after it, and you're right. They'll line up with 4 guys and say, you know what? Well, we're in this coverage. We're going to bring these 4 guys, and we're better than you. And it's a fun place to live as a group of players and coaches. So that's a quality team.
Gary Andersen, coach at Oregon State. It's the game against the Cougs this weekend. What does Washington State's offense do that makes them so tough to stop?
Well, this offense has got me highly intrigued. Another team in our league, obviously Colorado adopted it and has done some good things with some special players that Colorado has also. But this offense, it keeps you off guard, and it seems at times to be just repetitive, and it is, and that's what probably makes it so good. They have good players. I think Washington State's done a very good job of recruiting. They have a very, very talented quarterback in Luke. They have a group of wide receivers that have been there for a long time and played together. But I think the offensive line development has been key. As you look through the numbers, and I try to study these teams in our league as much as I can, they've really developed their offensive linemen over the last few years, and quite frankly, their defensive line too, which has put them in a position to be able to be undefeated right now in the league. But it's those, whatever you're playing, there's going to be an answer on defense. Whether you're bringing pressure, you're dropping 8, you're bringing 4, you're playing quarters, you're playing cover 3, and the receivers and the quarterback are on the same page. So just as it was against Cal and all the air raid offenses, and it was against Colorado, and it will be against Washington State, is you have to understand they are going to gain some yards, but you have to be able to get close to the quarterback, make him feel uncomfortable. If you're dropping 8, you have to make him feel uncomfortable with what he's seeing, and hopefully he holds the ball long enough that the pressure can get there. And then times you got to heat him up, get after him, and see if he can get the read, and hopefully you can smack him around a little bit and make him feel uncomfortable. So it's and Leach does a great job. He's a very, very good coach. No one can ever argue that in any way, shape, or form. And he's put together a heck of an offense. But the offense really, really intrigues me.
Yeah, and it's one of those things when I watch Washington State play, the one thing I'll say maybe negatively against Luke Falk, because he does hold on to the ball quite a bit. And so there are opportunities to get after him. There are opportunities to hit him. And it seems to me when teams have gotten to Washington State, it's hitting the quarterback, even if they're not sacking him. If you can put enough licks on him over the last couple of years, to me, that's when Washington State has seemed vulnerable.
Agreed. It's even if we're getting a hand fluttering around him, or the offensive lineman's getting pushed back into him, that's going to frustrate any quarterback. I don't care who you are. It's obviously best to sack him. Next best is to hit him, and third best is to distract him. And there's a lot of different ways to be able to do that. But if you take the idea and the identity that you're going to line up in man coverage and pressure almost every snap, Arizona State pressured a lot last week, and they got sacks and they hit him, but they ended up didn't score. That didn't score enough points to win the game, and it's just you got to pick your poison on who you are. That's who Arizona State's going to be. They're going to play man coverage and line up and put four corners on the field and say, let's go. We can't do that right now. We just don't have four corners. I love playing man, and I love doing those things and being high pressure, but we have to be smart with the people that we have right now in the program.
It does appear, though, the secondary is getting better. I know Colorado may have been the low point, but in the last 2 weeks, the passing offenses weren't necessarily great. But against Washington, I know there was a couple blown coverages, but I thought the corners actually did a really nice job holding up in some man situations against actually three really good receivers for Washington.
Yeah, I think Treston and Xavier have really played pretty well, and I agree with you 100%. It's been much improved since Colorado. You know, we didn't get pressure like on the quarterback at all against Colorado, and we've been a little better against Cal and a little better even last week. And so, but the corners, a lot of the credit does go to those two kids. I think they're battlers. They're competitive. X gets better every week. I think from where Treston's come from where he was a year ago is highly impressive, and he'll have a chance to put an NFL helmet on his head now for the way he's played this year. It's just, we lost Jay. That was hard. We had Sean been nicked up a little bit in and out, and so it's hard to get to that next guy. And Devin can come down and play in there when he needs to, but we would rather keep him back there at safety. So you see a little more base defense out of us right now than you have in the past, and probably will in the future.
So you're intrigued by that air raid. Maybe the Beavs one day will be running the air raid under Gary Andersen.
Air Beaver?
It's very interesting to me, and I study a lot of different things, and look, I'm not a big stat guy, but I do look at offense and see where things are at. And if you look at those national averages, those teams that are some sort of this wide open offense, there's many different ways to do it, but it's every week it seems like it's 17, 18, 7 of the top 20 teams are running that type of offense.
Yeah, the numbers don't really lie.
And is it a scheme? Because seemingly, again, from my point of view, when I look at Colorado, when I've watched them build, it's taken a while to get to where they're winning games, but they've been able to score points for a while. It seems like teams have been successful running this sort of air raid or, whatever version of it you want to call it. There's 1,000 different names for it, but the spread where they're running this air raid system seems like you can have success with it, even if the athletes aren't maybe exactly where you want them to be as you build the program.
Yeah, I think it's key to have the offensive line. When they were at San Jose State, they kind of built it the same way, and they're much different now than they were there, but there is some familiarity to it. They had a very good offensive line. They had a very good quarterback, and that's what Colorado has. That's what Washington has. Those guys are running it that way. And when you have a trigger man on an offensive line, those wide receivers and running backs know what they're doing, and they're good players. It's very hard to stop. Now, when you get some elite guys, Washington State's running backs are really good, and they're handling the ball off more. They're physical. They're good in the pass game. That's a whole other option to it because now they put the RPOs, the run-pass options into it. That's another level to it. I think Colorado's done that now. So, as it goes through time, it evolves. They don't just sit there and don't change anything, but it's, like I said, I'm very intrigued with it. I think it's a way to be able to score points, and it's a way for us to be able to recruit. So as we move forward, that's an area we are going to move into because it allows us to have a niche in recruiting, which is, again, the most important part is to have the athletes out there on game day, and that matters, and it gives us a chance. And we have a past here with recruiting wide receivers, and we've got to get that back. We've got to get those elite receivers back here and a guy that can get them the ball consistently, and then I think we'll have something special because we're building the offensive line within.
Love it. All right. Good luck against the Cougs, Coach. Always good talking to you.
Appreciate you guys. Have a great week. Go Beavs.
You too.
I think over the last handful of weeks, and he might be my favorite interview that we've done on any sort of weekly basis.
He's going to go air raid on you.
Well, he's talked about the last couple weeks understanding that you need an offense that can score in this conference. Yep. He doesn't think that you're going to be successful just trying to play 14 to 13 games. And it's funny is he's mentioned that now, and then the air raid. I think this is the third week in a row he's mentioned the air raid and how it intrigues him. And this one, you even maybe took a step further and said we're going to look at this direction. And he talks about the success they've had at other places building offensive linemen. If you can go out and you can recruit those wide receivers, and it's interesting. I think as the season has gone along, you've seen him be open-minded to new ideas, open-minded to building this thing a different way. And I think you're starting to see a blueprint of where he wants to go.
Isn't that great? That's a coach who's not set in his ways. Like, a lot of these coaches are like, hey, this is the way I do it. This is the way I've always done it. This is the way I'm going to, he's adapting to the league. And I think that's the sign of a smart guy and a good coach.
I think 100% that Oregon State has the right coach there to get this thing turned around.
All right, thanks to the Gare Bear. He joins us at 3:35, although a little late today, but 3:35 every Wednesday if you want to tune in for those interviews.